Well, welcome to the podcast. This is the Return podcast. No, what is it? The Return Unplugged. Let me get it straight. It's an opportunity for us to share a little bit more that we don't have time to share when we are on the stage sharing and we are teaching. And it's also an opportunity for people to ask questions because we feel like what we're talking about here as it relates to the sermon series about the return to Christ's vision for his church is really relevant. We feel like people experience it on an ongoing basis. And so we just hope people tap in, ask questions. And I'm just super excited today because I have a very, 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 very special guest joining the podcast. I have the opportunity to be in the host chair today because this past Sunday, Jackie Glass taught an amazing message. And so we are thrilled to have you here with us to share a little bit. Now, hold on. Let me pause. Let me just help people understand something real quick. So, Jackie, Elgin campus, right? When we had the Elgin campus,
Yep.
you began to teach at the Elgin campus, right?
Yep.
And so then I transitioned. I become the lead pastor in Rockford, and then I'm like, I got to build a team, and I'm like, we champion the gifts of women in ministry, and so it's important for us to have women on stage. And I made an ask. And I said, Jackie, would you continue to be a part of this team? Would you continue to teach? And you said yes.
Yeah.
You said yes. And then in that, every time you teach, well, first of all, you allowed me to just throw sermon topics at you.
That is 100% true.
You allowed me to say, all right, Jackie, let me throw this at you real quick and see what you're gonna do with this. And then so you help us as we continue to live up this value. I think when you teach, you represent so much more than you just teaching on that Sunday. So number one, just thank you for doing that and contributing and sowing seed into our space. And people don't get a chance, at least, if people follow you, obviously they can follow you in all that you do. But we haven't made space for people to get to know you outside of you teaching on the Sunday.
Yeah.
So I would just love for you to tell the folks what else you got going on. Like, people know you as you teach, but then you got a whole lot of other stuff going on. And so I won't say all that for you. Yeah. I'll let you kind of break it down as far as what you got going on, even outside of when you teach at Forest City on the Sunday.
Yeah. Well, first of all, to be invited into spaces is just one of the greatest gifts. And it has been such a joy to be able to be with you, to be under your leadership. And every time I get to come, it feels like coming home. It just feels like this warm, kind, hospitable environment. And that's a big deal. I never take that for granted. And so to be invited in has been such a gift.
Yep.
We're at a couple more years now already.
Yeah.
We've been doing this together.
Yep.
And so I always love that. So thank you for the invitation.
Our pleasure.
Yeah. So a lot of my life lives at this intersection of psychology and theology.
Okay.
And so my background in seminary is a master's in counseling psychology. And so in that is I love people. I love being in the trenches with people. I love helping people feel hope and healing and restoration. And so have done that in a clinical setting and also done that in the church setting. I mean, what better place for people to feel hope and healing and community and restoration when it comes to within the church. And so I've been on staff in a few churches as well. And most of my day now is spent coaching leaders within the church, outside the church, which I just love. I mean, when you are full-time staff, just a word for Mr. Pastor here of where your time goes and so many unseen, unspoken, heroic moments that nobody will ever know.
People have no idea.
No idea. No idea. And one of the greatest joys for me now is to have margin, not being full-time on staff within ministry, but to come alongside church staff and leaders in coaching and preaching and speaking. And I love it because you work really hard. You all work really, really hard. And there's not much margin outside of that. And so if I can be an influx of energy and help when it comes, I really love that part. So most of my day is spent coaching, speaking, preparing talks, messages, and I love it. The practitioner side of me that loves one-on-one knowing people, hearing their stories, helping them, and then the speaker side of me that gets to bring that to life. And I will say this, because you do this so well with the people and the places that you are, is that the stage or the platform or preach only works if there is this underground life of practitioner one-on-one with people.
Yeah.
Because if you're speaking in a way that is not rooted and anchored in actual story of people,
Yes.
all different people in all different situations, it brings a different level of empathy and warmth. And how is he speaking to me? Well, because
I know.
I've been
in the
hearing
trenches.
stories with it.
Yeah.
That's where I spend my time.
And then, and Working Genius is a part of that too,
Yes.
right? I'll be listening to your posts, and you'll be, dropping gems about discernment, or you know what I'm saying, all those things. And so that's something that you also got in your bag as far as a specific way that you help teams to be intelligent about who's on the team and how they can work together.
Yes.
Tell me more about that and how impactful that's been as you've worked with teams.
Yeah. So Working Genius is this incredible tool. Patrick Lencioni, Table Group, created this tool. And my therapy hat loves assessments. I'm kind of that geeked out practitioner when it comes to assessments. And so many of us have done Strength Finders. We've done Enneagram. We've done DISC, really helpful personality assessment. If you and I had 3 extra hours, we could talk about numbers and colors and all these different ways.
Everything. I'm a 1 on the Enneagram.
Okay.
Tenacity.
Okay.
Talking about tenacity individual over here.
There we go. Yeah.
Tenacity and the wonder.
Tenacity and top and the bottom.
Tenacity and wonder.
Wow. Fun fact.
Okay.
So Working Genius within the widget, so it spells WIDGET. So all these 6 different stages of how work goes. So if you're W and you're T, you have the most distance between your 2 geniuses.
Okay. What does that mean?
Naturally means you feel more tension in life.
That's so
Wondering
real.
if that resonates.
Absolutely.
At all.
Absolutely.
With you. Because you constantly want to create change, see the best, see the need for what could be, and then you want to get to work and get it done.
Absolutely.
And so you're constantly in the elevation of the geniuses. The more distance you have, the more natural tension you'll feel of knowing disciplined what genius you're in the moment, in the meeting, in the conversation of knowing where you're going to find people.
Yeah, man, I'm
so
getting
cool.
red. Listen, just send me a link and I'll send my payment after the podcast. My intention was not to, for me to be the target.
I got you.
But I appreciate that. But yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Well, and Working Genius is great. How I found myself there was really, really vulnerably. I kept finding people, including myself, leaving spaces, wondering if we left too soon.
Okay.
And wondering if, if really resignations were needed, almost in a way. And I kept working with teams and experiencing personally saying, how do we care and keep our best people? And what does that look like? And much of that was, how does work get done? What do work environments look like? What does wellness for a workplace happen? Because what we started to see was the more people were noticed, the less people were giving their notices at work. And so I just thought, how else can I come alongside teams to really help create environments where people feel invested in personally, but also the work gets done? I mean, you get that, Mr. Tenacity. You're like, bottom line, end of the day, work still needs to get done. And so I got certified in Working Genius to say this is going to be a really cool tool, because the other assessments were 80% personality and 20% kind of teamwork. Working Genius is 80% productivity, 20% personality. And so it was the first time as I started leading this with teams and working with this with individuals, was people understood themselves, but greater than that, they understood themselves in the context of where they worked. My 2 geniuses are discernment and galvanizing, which are the 2 that are just pure activation. And so when I saw that come alive in me, I thought, wow, I wish I had this language earlier of just what brings me energy, purpose, and joy when it comes to work. And so I did another facilitation last week for a church staff team, and it was so cool because, when you begin to rub heads with somebody, if you can understand them in a different context and what frustrates you. Well, thank goodness, because if it frustrates you, but I'm really great at this, it gets at the interconnectivity of who we're meant to be and how we work together. And so most of us think, well, I need all 6 geniuses to show up because this is how I'm functioning in life. And the reality is it just allows us one-on-one with each other, within teamwork, to be able to do it. So I love it. I could talk hours about working genius.
You know, basically what I'm trying to help people understand is everything you got going. And so if you can use Jackie's services, please hit her up. We're looking forward to continuing working with you even more outside of you teaching, right? Our staff. Yeah. So we're excited about that. Also, real quick, I know Trevor McDonald, former campus pastor at our Rockford campus.
Yes.
He's certified in Working Genius as well. So I want to shout out Trev.
Yeah, that's right.
You know Trev.
That's right.
Holla Trev, good dude.
Yes. Yes.
He's a genius in and of himself. And so yeah.
Very fun. Yeah.
So let's get into it. So what I threw you this time, I said, Jackie, talking about the church, returning to Christ's vision. And just so people know, what happens first is I have the order of who's teaching, right? Before, and then I determine the order of what is being taught. Yeah. And then objectively, I lay those 2 things, you know what I mean, together. Yeah. And then that's how. And so, because in hindsight, I was like, should I have taught this topic? You know what I mean? Should I have switched with Jackie? Because this can be a challenging topic, but as it relates to the church and its return, and you know, the passage that you had, it's a famous passage for most people. They know it, right? Where Peter's talking about, you know, you are a royal priesthood, you are a holy nation, you know what I mean? God's chosen possession, right? You know, so we some of us have heard this a lot of times, and I was researching and I was like, oh man, I didn't necessarily think about that passage as it relates to this context with the church, with but sometimes you go on a journey and you don't know where it's going to lead, but it led me there. Yeah. And so one of the reasons I love this, I need a companion podcast with every sermon series, because there's always something that I have to cut out of my sermon. Yeah. I have to make really difficult decisions because, you know, time is limited, but you got a lot of really good stuff, right? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, you know, as you're preparing, you're having to make tough decisions. It's a lot there. What was that like for you? You know, what are some of those things that you wish you could have said, but you didn't have time to say? Yeah. This is your moment. Yeah. This is your opportunity. Yeah. What was burning for you that we didn't get a chance to hear on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, this is every preacher's dream. Tell us what you left on the cutting floor.
Yes, that's it.
That you wish you could have said. Because, you know, there's a tipping point when you add too much. Yes. It just comes cognitive overload and children's ministry starts screaming and babies start yelling and we can't have that. And so I appreciate this because you always have more that you want to say, but not in that context, but in this context, which was great. You know, when I just need to say this about how you develop sermon series too, because you do all this and then, you know, let me know, invite me into what I'm going to teach on. Your breadth of scripture, I said this to you after service, your breadth of scripture of what you know and how you pull these things together amazes me every time. Truly amazes me. Yeah. Because I got this passage and then, you know, I listened to all that you've taught already and I'm like, okay, and here we go. We're gonna figure this out. But I tell you what, by the time I'm done, it's just like, that was it. That was exactly it. This was the passage. This is what needed to happen. And so usually for me, I dive in, I start reading, I start understanding, I start commentaries, I start reading it in different versions of scripture. Like I just try to make it come alive. I think that one of our greatest responsibilities as we preach the gospel is to make the gospel alive and accessible. Yes. Because it is. And so we can't complicate things when it comes to that, but we do the complicated work behind the scenes of then making the gospel alive and accessible when somebody hears it. And so the more I sat with the passage, the more I realized the structure actually is really there for this passage when we think about how did Jesus intend the church to be? And it's always the identity, the purpose, and then the activity. And so often
That phrase you said was so good. What did you say? Identity precedes activity? Identity precedes activity?
Identity always precedes activity.
So good.
Yeah. When we find ourselves, pumping ourselves up in the mirror. My high schoolers are taking their finals this week, and they're like, all right, Mom, remind me, like, I got this.
Can I interrupt you? When you said this, I always go back. I don't even know if you're aware of this. Hopefully someone listening may. The thing that I think about when you said that and you were talking about get hyped up, there's a movie called Cool Runnings.
Oh, yeah.
Jamaican bobsled team.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a moment and he was like, look in the mirror and you tell me what you see. I can't say all of what he said.
Oh, my gosh.
But every time, you know what I mean? When you reference that, I'm always in my mind thinking about Cool the Runnings.
That is
I see
so
pride.
good.
I see power. And I can't say the next sentence, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I love that. So that's what I think about. Like, in the mirror, like, okay, you got to get it together.
Oh, my.
I do. Who am I? Yeah, I do it. Yep.
I need to redo the sermon with Cool Runnings. I can see the image. I can see the dreads.
Yeah.
Your ossified knees off, right?
Yeah.
Like you're just getting it all
So anyway,
going on.
I just want to put that in there.
That's so good. But that's what we do.
Yes.
And the reason we do that is because we're about to walk into something unknown, difficult, challenging. And what can happen for us as believers is we can say, well, this is how we need to live the activity. And then we're coming out sideways with each other. And we say, well, what's really going on?
Yep.
What's happening?
Yep.
And so the passage, Peter is writing this in a way, he's huddling back up the church and he's saying, don't forget who you are. And then here are some things that are going to be difficult and challenging of how we live them out. But if we move right to the bobsled down the ice in Jamaica without reminding ourselves, there's something that happens when we do that. And often as a church, that's what is important of what we need to do with that identity before the activity.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you broke down, sheesh, the way, because initially, and I'm gonna mess this up, I apologize. But when it comes to what Peter was saying, I love the way you broke it down as relates to chosen people.
Yep.
Royal priesthood,
holy nation, God's special possession. Yeah.
The way you broke that down and with such simplicity.
Yeah.
And then out of that, then you rightfully pointed us to then the identity that was formed, and then what came next was all right. Well, then now here are your marching orders, right? Was there in that was there aspects of that you wanted to dive deeper into when you put other, like what? I mean, because I that's monstrous, right? Like you got different sermons that you know what I mean. You can go deeper in each one of those. Did you find yourself caught up? In all of that as you try to unpack that?
Yeah. Well, like you said, I mean, if you've been around church, you've heard that before. You've heard those identity statements. Maybe you even heard the theology behind it, that those were the statements that used to have only been said over Israel. So one nation. So it makes sense that, Israel was God's chosen people and holy nation, that those statements had been said over Israel. And so perhaps you've heard that before. But what was so interesting to me as I went through that was the Holy Spirit really slowed me down to say, these are kind words to speak over people.
Yep.
That there was, you know this, as we're preparing our preaches, there's so many directions we can go. There's so many moments we can take. And it was a really strong, make this pastoral of truly kind, secure, blessing words over people, instead of just almost like data points. This was identity points of what was to happen. And the one I stopped at and kind of gave the analogy with the phone was God's special possession. And that one for me, there was like because I think what happens is we try to possess things, like back to the control piece. And when I think of us being God's special possession, like that God is possessive of us in the most beautiful way that it was meant to be used. And so, I thought of the phone and how so many of us like possess that. And again, I'm not wearing my Apple Watch right now, but
I got mine on.
All day long, I'm like, where is my phone?
My wife, Angela, she'll be in the house. And she just does this. She just shakes her head. I'm like, what? That's what it's for.
I know.
I gotta find my phone.
I know. You know, usually where I find mine, it's in one of my kids' hands. And so they're always busted.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
They're like, stop ringing your watch. We've got your phone.
Yeah.
But, you know, you've seen this before. When I lose it or somebody loses it in the store, like they lose their mind when they lose their special possession.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality that we are God's special possession that makes us secure,
Mm-hmm.
that makes us seen,
Mm-hmm.
that makes us in sight, that makes us protected. That does a lot for what we feel like we need to possess
Mm-hmm.
as people who are in this world, but not of this world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when we get that right, so much of this is when we feel secure in that, we stop having to be people who are constantly trying to prove our identity, prove our worth, prove our positions. The proving can stop when we know we are treasured
Mm-hmm.
and secure and we are possessed in a beautiful, secure way. I mean, think about the person in your life that gives you just the best hugs,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like those embraces that are just like, I can't get out of this even if I wanted to, you know, that type of security at which we truly have. And from that security, we can begin to live differently of our intentions of what we need to prove in this lifetime to other people. And that matters when it comes to really what that activity comes from us.
I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to come back to this. But it reminded me, last summer, you weren't a part of the summer series. I in my heart, really just wanted to encourage.
Yeah.
I'm so geared towards challenge, and I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
And last summer, I was like, you know, I just want to encourage the people. So we did a summer series called Priceless. We talked about the Imago Day.
Yeah.
We talked about it all. And so from that, and ever since that series,
Wow.
I address people, man of God, woman of God.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it just happens.
Yeah.
So to the point to where that people began to address me like that because I said so much.
That's right.
And so you saying that it's because it encourages me to do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, so the same way that I felt called to encourage people and calling them, you know, man of God, woman of God, because of how priceless that they are, because they bear His image.
Yeah.
That leads me to want to do the same thing so that it hopefully will continue to bear fruit in our church.
That's right.
As I will take your lead and continue to speak that over, because it's so relevant, it's so true, it's so encouraging, so good.
Well, and I think that's what the church as Jesus intended it to be, was that every time we gather, there are on-ramps for everybody into the gospel.
Yeah.
And we have to understand that in a room that size on a Sunday, there are people that have not had good words spoken over them.
Yeah.
There are people who have, and there are people who haven't.
Yes.
And some of that has come from the authority that has been in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we are just aware, not only from stage to seat, but seat to seat to having donuts and coffee, when we are aware that our experience is not the only experience, but instead we build on-ramps for each person. And so we're just mindful to say, who in this room has had words that have been great and a blessing over them, and who in this room has not. And so when you just data point, hey, this is your identity, it goes in one ear and out the other ear, because in a way we've learned to deflect words out of protection that haven't been good words. And so when we understand scripture and when we bring that to life, part of the basics is going to be receiving good words, receiving truth. And so that's, again, like that intersection of psychology and theology, is you're speaking truth, but then you're also asking yourself, how will somebody receive the truth? And if we all can continue to provide on-ramps for different experiences, again, it just allows the gospel to be accessible and alive, and that allows the Spirit to just work in ways that we know sometimes and we never know other times. But those moments to say, if you're saying identity over someone, I'm not assuming somebody's just gonna be like, oh, that's amazing, Jackie, thank you so much. I got it. It's here. I got it. We have to understand why doesn't this work? Why are we still breathing the scripture into life? Why are we coming back? Why have we drifted? Why are these things not true? And so that's just the beauty of scripture and the gospel and the power of the Holy Spirit activating for each person in that moment of what that could be.
Yeah, man. I love that. I almost threw my shoe at you when you did that, but I didn't do that because my church would be like, "What is Pastor doing?" I have to contain myself sometimes. So then you go to out of our identity. I mean, and right off the bat, respect everyone.
Yeah.
And you said something. I'm gonna mess it up, but you said something to the effect of the church. The church doesn't determine dignity because God already did something to that effect, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, woo-wee, there's a lot. And also, we talked about dignity a little bit in Priceless, right? Now that you know that you are the image of God, that's so right. Then that means that you have an inherent dignity.
That's right.
Which means that impacts how I allow people to treat me, but then also how I treat other people.
Yeah.
So anyway, so there's a
Yep. It was so interesting, right? As you study this passage, it was like 4 identities, purpose in the middle of displaying the goodness of God, and then 4 marching activities. You and I had some fun marching band moments.
Yes,
in this,
we did.
Which was so fun.
I almost geeked out. You mentioned the marching band. I almost stood up. I almost started heel toeing that joint. I got so excited.
I should have had, Andrea, bring your saxophone and just have it in the wings.
My nephew has it. My nephew has it.
Okay.
My nephew is a more talented saxophonist than I am.
Wow.
He actually, I was classical. He's jazz and does all kind of stuff.
Wow.
He was like, "Unc, I need a horn." So I don't even have it. So even if someone like, "Hey, play it," I ain't got it. It's in Kansas City. So
do we believe him on that? I'm not.
Nephew, you enjoy that horn as long as you need.
Yeah, there's a lot of music stores around here. I'm not totally buying that you can't get your hands on a saxophone.
I'll leave it there.
All right, we're gonna leave it there. Okay, yeah. but here's what we had. You're even in marching band. You're remembering your identity, but then you're still marching on the field. Like you've got to still do the activity. And so as I studied this passage, what stuck out to me was the 4 marching orders, and it was respect everyone. Love the family of God, fear God, respect the king. And as I sat in that, I thought, well, isn't that so interesting? Why does it go from respect to love to fear to respect? And so I just sat in that. And, it's so interesting that the last one, respect the king, respect authority has to remind us that, remember at the beginning when I said respect everyone, let me just bring it back to authority.
Yep, exactly, yep.
P.S. The authority above you is everyone. But how powerful is that?
Yes.
Because that's the reminder that we often need. And so respect everyone was, like you said, it was this dignity that as a church, the goodness in itself is not the church. That's when we idolize the church and we can get ourselves in the trouble. The church is the display of the goodness of God. It is a group of people who are on display for the goodness of God. And when we do that, part of it is we respect everyone, that the church also doesn't decide the dignity of people, that every single person bears the image of God. And because of that, in itself, in its humanity, actually has dignity. So we don't decide that. The church does not decide that. God already did. And one of the things I didn't get to mention in the sermon that I thought is just such a practical way to say, how do we almost measure that we're living out these things is to use those words in our vocabulary. Like when you're in conversation with somebody and say you disagree with them, say they will never show you kindness back, say you're just at a really frustrating moment, does the word "I respect you" come out of your mouth? Like, do you actually use the word respect? And I've been challenged in this in my life to say, if I'm going to live those out, does that word respect actually get verbalized out of my mouth? If loving the family of God, taking it the next level of, we are not just a group of people. We are in this together. You and I, our daughters are on the same gymnastics team.
Yep.
We see each other outside of this. Our kids are flipping and twisting and turning, and we're like on the sidelines we can't do a cartwheel.
Yep.
We're seeing this. But there's something different when it comes to loving the family of God. And sometimes we really agree with those people. Sometimes we're really aligned with those people. And sometimes we're not. But do the words, hey, like, I love you. Like, I disagree with you, but I love you. Like, does that word come off my lips to fellow believers? And so that's what has been helpful for me, is to say, do the words respect, love, fear God? When I'm in the height of my people pleasing moments of fearing somebody or someone other than proper worship and allegiance and obedience to what I feel like God has called me to do or say or be, do I practice fear? Do I say, I fear God alone? I worship God alone. When I'm with authority, whether it's online, whether it's in person, does the word, I respect you, I will humbly engage in the world and the people around me and the places of authority that are over me, are those words actually coming off my lips? And so that's been, for some of us, we need really, really practical things. And I would just encourage us, use the words. Actually use those verbs as to what they are, and find yourself in those moments, and then see what it begins to stir inside of you, and see what it begins to stir in the other side of the person as you're talking to them.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's some of that generosity at which we go first and which we offer. And again, when somebody receives that in a way, it marks them, it changes them. It kind of catches them off guard.
Yeah, we did. We had an event. It was a couples event, whether you were married, unmarried, and it was about conflict. Yeah. And one of the things that it talked about in that is that people will reflect back to you, right?
Yeah.
And so if I'm having a conversation and I verbalize my respect for someone, then they reflect that back to me.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, because I'm saying one thing and verbalizing it, then the other person is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself in a position where there was conflict, but because of what I'm now saying and then them reflecting it back, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But it happens. It's a real thing.
Yeah. And so what if it starts with us?
Yeah.
And that gets back to some of generosity.
Yeah.
We can be generous with that. We can have the vision ahead to put aside in that moment what really we want to prove or say or be heard. But what happens is once there is a congruence, like you said, right? So if I sit like this, what they know is probably at some point you're gonna cross gonna cross your arms. Like we're going to mirror each other in a level of congruence of what that looks like. So the same can happen when it comes to, like you said, in a marriage, in any type of relationship, but it often takes us going first. And it often takes us saying, if I can be in this moment, I can also see the next 5-6 moments down the line. And we'll say, well, how did we get here? How are we marching in step in a way? But we have to be the ones to start it. And we can all lead in that way in these little corners of our life. We can lead in these ways. And because of that, relationships can look different again. But it takes a generosity on our part to give that before somebody has earned it. Somebody has deserved it. We could be right. We could be standing in what we know to be true. But what does that look like if we offer that to then trust in the mirroring of what we could do to everyone or even within the family of God?
We could be right.
We probably are.
You might be right, but still, even in spite of that, that's a whole other conversation about the need that we have to be right. I won't go there because where I want to go is when I look back in hindsight with you teaching this message, I was like, man, this is the message that I've been wanting to teach. So how we got here. Thank you for the kind words you said about me doing sermon series.
It's incredible.
I'm a rookie. I'm a lead pastor. It hasn't even been 2 years. I'm trying to figure this thing out, right? And so you come into moments where you're like, oh, it worked out. That could be by the grace of God. Can I just say that? Because let me just say that might not be because of whatever wisdom or brilliance that I have. That could just be the grace of God on our ministry. But really, I'm listening, I'm feeling,
Yes, you
I'm
are.
discerning.
Yeah.
And so for me doing this sermon series, it was coming out of a time in the fall. What was wild is when you were doing Grafted, you had another. I said, Jackie, talk about our forward value relationships with people that are different, and talk about the presence of God all in one sermon.
It's like 100-mile-an-hour fastball that I'm just praying.
Yeah,
I get
I
3
did it.
strikes
Yeah.
to see if I can catch up with it.
So in the midst of that, there's a lot going on in our nation.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember feeling people's expectation for me to like address things specifically.
Sure.
Jackie, I'm wrestling.
Right.
I mean, I'm behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I'm wringing my hands.
Yeah.
I feel the weight of the moment, right? And just look back what was going on in August, September, October 2025, right?
Yep.
And I got the platform.
Yep.
And every time it was like, yo, just stay the course. And at the end of the day, what was going on in my brain was, man, just remember who we are, right?
Yeah.
And so then with this passage, and you talking about identity, I just was like, all right, I feel forces to do something different, to go somewhere else, and I want to stay right here, but I'm sensing we as a church we've drifted, right? Because instead of being a light, instead of being a beacon in these times, the church, Big C Church, has become something else. Yeah. And so this sermon, this teach was one of the like re-anchoring, right? And so before you taught, I talked about the drift in the church. Yep. And there wouldn't need to be a return if we had left, right? And so you highlighted a lot of great things in this text relevant to the church. How do you speak to, and again, you are in many different spaces, contexts, communities. You have a very unique perspective. Me, I'm ride or die for my church. I'm at Full City Church. I ain't coming to your church. I got an off Sunday. I'm at my church, right? Yes. I know we broadcast and people watch from all over. Yeah. I'm not necessarily talking to y'all though. I am in my church, right? And so, but you are in many different spaces, many different contexts, perspectives. You're exposed to a lot, right? So when we talk about the drift, when we talk about what you had a chance to teach on, what would you have to say as it relates to what you taught on, and maybe what are some of the underlying dynamics that may prevent us from living into our identity as a chosen people, royal priesthood, holy nation, right? Yeah. What are some underlying things that you see that keeps us from respecting of everyone, loving believers, having allegiance to God? You know what I'm saying? What's underneath? Yeah. What would you say about the drift that we've experienced in the church?
Yeah. The formation of how we form as people is we are naturally going to categorize. We're going to try to find order in the chaos. It's like we are wired to try to make sense of things. And so I think in the formation of how we are sensing the world, how we are sensing what is happening in our culture, within politics, is left to our own senses. We are going to take sides. We are going to divide. We're going to try to order and categorize. It's just when we feel a level of chaos, we want to start organizing. You could be the most unorganized person, but there's something
Yep.
that makes us hardwired
Mm-hmm.
for really not wanting to feel pain.
Mm-hmm. You're in your bag right now. Jackie went back. She's in her trained educational psychology bag right now. In case y'all didn't understand what she was saying.
Is this okay?
She's,
Can I stay in
this
this
is great.
bag?
No,
Okay.
please stay in your
Okay.
bag. I'm just
Okay.
letting people know that where you're coming from. She's in the bag right now.
Okay. Because the church is a people we become. And so sometimes I just go back to the bag of people.
No, it's
that we
good.
actually
No,
are.
this is great.
All right. So, but think about that though. Each of us in our own experiences, we, John Ortberg says we have inward eyeballs. We go inside, we look at ourselves. This is how I experience life. And then we try to not feel pain. And so we try to categorize, we try to take sides, we try to blame, we try to do all these things to navigate our human experience.
Mm.
And so within that, when we live within a culture that has hierarchy, systems of power, organized in different ways, stay with me, our natural bend is going to then put that on the structures that we see in place with our human eyes. So the drift will be a natural human drift of what is forming us, what content is forming us, what our experience is forming us, what people we're around. We will naturally pick sides, organize, categorize, because we are trying to make sense of a human world as spiritual beings. So what we do as a church is we call it time out and we say, why were we designed to have natural allegiances? Why were we designed to worship somebody or something that has ultimate power? Why were we designed to be dependent on somebody who is in ultimate control? And so what we do is what we have to bring back our proper allegiance. We were created that way for a reason. We were created to make order. God is a God of order out of chaos. But also in scripture, it says, who has known the mind of the Lord and who has ever been his counselor? Who could ever sense the things around us? There are things we will not know till the other end. And so there's a category of not having to organize all the different parts of our pain and division and sides, because there's a greater spiritual realm of what is happening that we cannot understand in our humanness. So all this to say, we have to reorder our loves and our loyalties under King Jesus, that our allegiance is to him and to him alone. He is the only one that is feared. And walking this in a human experience as spiritual beings, building categories to say, I can be God's treasured possession without feeling like I have to possess all these things. We have to understand both of those parts. Otherwise, we will be hard pressed to sides, divides, different categories of how we want to do people and the things around us. So the proper response is not withdraw or dominance. But there's something in us that just has two gears. It's like reverse or fifth gear, on your stick shift car. And so what we constantly have to do is bring back under that allegiance to Jesus. And from that flows how we will engage with the people and the places in the world. And so it's really important what's forming us. It's really important what content we're ingesting, what context we find ourselves. You mentioned about being in different places and spaces, and I could not be more grateful for this part of my life right now for what you're saying. I'm around a lot of different churches that have different beliefs, different opinions, different perspectives, because that's true of us as Christians. And the number one thing I am constantly met with is we can be convicted and kind. Each of us. We can be convicted and kind. And with that comes challenge, and with that comes perspective. And when we are convicted and kind, the best thing that we can do, I think, is keep being invited into spaces. And so when we are invited into spaces, the truth is the truth. And so when you are preaching the truth of that, you've hit the truth if you are preaching the truth. And so what does that look like when it comes to who we are as people, who we are as loyalties? And so when we start intertwining ultimate power and allegiance to the structures of the world, a tool, helpful, a reality, it does bring help. It really is a way in which we organize, but we are people in the world, not of the world. And so if we can, two things, if we can live the reality of not withdraw, not dominance, and if we can respect and love other people who are learning that balance, that's how I think the church really magnifies the goodness, and in the drift can be bringing one another back to Jesus more than debates that are just for the purpose of proving. We have to wrestle with things. We have to humbly approach things. We have to call out things that really are evil and unkind, but we don't become evil in the process. We lose our testimony. We lose our invitation into people's lives when we become evil instead of fighting the evil at which we see. And that becomes really important in how we do that and how we understand structure and authority in a way that is helpful instead of engaging in a way that actually causes more confusion. And so it's a hard balance. I mean, I'm learning how I don't do this right. There's a humility that is required as all of us are facing things that we've never faced before, we've never wrestled with before. When theology has to become embodied for each of us, that takes a lot of time. And one of the things that stuck out to me in this preach was, the marching orders of, respect and love and fear for God and respect authority is measuring growth of that will take time. And Jesus is okay with that. Like, I was reminded of how he is quick to save. He is quick to forgive. And then when we think of our growth, you said this last week on the podcast, like continuing to be saved. When the picture of Jesus and our growth for our lifetime is he's a gardener. He's a gardener. There is a stewardship at which we grow that will take time. And if each of us will humbly allow ourselves in that process under his authority to say, I am not going to always get this right, or I'm going to have new information, or I'm going to learn a new way, or I'm going to, have a new revelation of how these things need to work out in our world. That growth part is, Jesus is actually a gardener in that. And the growth of that will take time. We moved into our house 2 years ago, and it was a full year that we had.
That was 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
Golly,
I know.
that seemed like that was just last year.
Crazy. And we had no idea what was going to come up.
Yeah.
Like you move into a space and you're like, this looks like a bush, but I don't know if this is a bush. and we had no idea. And I'm just like, well, let's pull this all out. And my husband, he's really patient, and he's the gardener in the family. And he's like,
God bless John.
I know. God bless John. God bless John. And he was just like, I don't think we need to touch this one because I think this is what this, and I'm like, this is a weed. This is like, we've been here 8 months. This is nothing. And sure enough, it happened again last week. You hit the end of May, the beginning of June, and color starts to come. And so for each of us, growth will take time. It is the daily surrender of being under King Jesus that we can be open-handed on some of these things and ideas that we've just gripped to. But what does it look like to humbly walk? And he's quick to save, he's quick to forgive, but man, he's really patient with us in our growth.
Yeah.
And then one of the ways we are generous with each other is we can also be patient with other people's growth on their journey, on their story, where they find themselves in this season, in this culture, and what they're learning. And the most magnetic thing about us can be how we engage one another in that process.
You said a lot there, Jackie. One one thing I heard was you just talk about our natural tendency as humans
Yeah.
to want to order, to categorize. Our brain is lazy in that way. And like you said, based on our experiences, based on what we know, based on when I was in 1 Samuel chapter 8, the sermon before yours, we were talking about control.
Yeah.
And control is the motivation, and the method is culture. So culture provides us with the things
That's right.
that we feel like
Yeah.
will give us what we want, what we need.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is, so then as we're trying to organize, we're using what is around us
Yep.
to organize the categories to make sense about what's going on in our heads, right? So I think it's important for people to understand this is left unchecked.
Yeah.
This is a natural propensity of our human
That's right.
nature, and a lot of what we experience is a product of that. And so then then you went to our allegiance to God, right? So then our allegiance to God has to short circuit all of that, and then we should flow from that place. And so if there was a starting point, if there was one thing that I'm going to put all my energy and all my effort into, if there's one thing that I'm going to continue to work out and to figure out and increase my awareness on, it's that allegiance portion.
Yeah.
As I try to become more aware of my allegiances,
Yeah.
because it'll be from that, then it flows.
Yes.
Something else you said I think is really good. I want to make sure I got it right, because what can happen is there can be discouragement as we experience all these things. It's really, really big challenges, really big problems, really deep-rooted issues. And I think you said something to the effect of like, it's not in that, it's in the invitation for the individual. I'm relating to individual people, and I get a chance to continue to invite them into a different space. And that's the level at which we should approach. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Not get overwhelmed by... But we have an opportunity as we encounter individuals to invite them into different space. Am I saying that right?
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes I think because our mind will go towards big structure, big power, what's at play, we forget the little, very mundane moments. We can all make a massive difference in our neighborhoods, in our schools, with our family members, with our friendships. We can put into play many of the things that are stirred and burdened and in our hearts. And some of us have bigger parts to play, and some of us, when it comes to like a public piece, and that's beautiful. This is the whole, like, we don't need 200 clarinets. We need everybody in the marching band.
You said that. We don't need, Lord, please don't give us 200 clarinets. The asthma, because it's hard to get that wind through that clarinet, boy.
A lot of asthma and a lot of confusion. So how you live this out is going to look different than I live this out. That looks different than this. And thank goodness. But what it means is that each of us can play parts, so many that will never be seen. And so what are those spaces that you are inviting others into and you are being invited into? If you stay really curious about how people are living and what they're doing and what is at the kind of the crux of their pain, like you are going to learn so much, and it will help you in how you relate to other people. But we can't underestimate those little moments of, our kids come home and they tell us about a certain classmate that just moved into the neighborhood, and those are huge formation moments for your heart, for my heart, of being like, I have no idea what to do. but what is the invitation to live this out? And what is the invitation to do what we need to do in this? And so a lot of times your inside voice has to really match the megaphone at which we're portraying in the world. Again, whether that's online, whether that's in person, whatever that is. But that really inside voice of how you use it can just do wonders for the kingdom of God.
I'm thinking of a book. Oh, shucks. I forget what book it is. It could be Stranger God. We read Stranger God last year as a church. I'm forgetting what it talked about. Oh man. I think it was Stranger God. It talked about loving locally.
Yeah.
Because so like, at the time, I'm seeing what's going on with Israel and Gaza, and I'm like, oh man, like, Hamas, and and I could like, hey, I could have a stance, and I could on my social media, I'm talking about it, and this is big conflict, and I want my voice to be heard. And then meanwhile, you know what I mean? I'm feeling as though I'm being compassionate because I'm caring about something over there.
That's right.
But meanwhile, in my day-to-day life, there's so many opportunities for me to be compassionate right here, for me to champion the marginalized right here. And sometimes we miss those opportunities. I think sometimes we also minimize the small and we underestimate the big impact. That's also in Stranger God. Teresa Avila, The Little Way, talked about that. So anyway, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And when you couple that with what we just talked about, with that identity portion, and then like how that then plays out, the work that flows out of our identity, that's powerful. That's powerful.
Yeah. Returning to the way Jesus intended the church to be.
Yeah.
And, it was, last Sunday was Pentecost Sunday.
Yep.
Which, church did such a great job. Andy and the team, and,
it's hard.
It was so good.
It's even hard for us to balance. How do we deal with all this stuff? Pentecost Sunday, we got this Memorial Day,
church generosity,
everything.
So Leonard, you're like, and go.
Yep.
But it worked out great. And as I was preparing the message, I was like, all right, Memorial Day, and it's Pentecost Sunday. How do all these things happen? And we all worked as a team, which was great to make sure everybody was honored and represented. But the beauty of the church is we are people who should never belong to one another. We are people who we have done so much that is not helpful when it comes to staying in relationship with one another and within the world around us. And that's the beauty of Pentecost Sunday, though, is that the unity of one Spirit, it is through the activation of the Spirit that the miracle of the church is not that we show up on Sunday. The miracle of the church is that we are people who should never belong to one another
in the first place.
Ever.
Yeah.
And yet if we stop to think about that, and then we realize, okay, we are God's special possession, that we never should belong to one another. And then what will we do for that? What will help our witness be a witness to somebody else's before they met Jesus, to bring them into the after. And so much of that is by how we engage in the world in ways that there is opportunity for people to live differently, but in a unity of, we never forget, like it is through the Holy Spirit's activation that we should never belong to one another. And here we are, belonging to one another.
Yeah. So good. So good. Listen, thank you so much. You are such a gift. Thank you for being generous with your time today.
So fun.
And so, I know you working on a book. I was like, should I say it? I'm just be on the lookout, for Jackie's book that's coming out that I know she's working on. Listen, your ministry, all that you're doing. Let me just say that, I don't know what voices you may have in your head. I don't know where the places are where you may second guess yourself or whatever it is. But But man, the ministry of Jackie Glass is a blessing. And my prayer is that that the Lord's will continue to flow through your life as you are being faithful to the purpose that He is set before you. And I just want to encourage you, if you ever wondered if it matters or if you're a blessing, I mean, I'm telling you, it matters.
Thank you.
Just look at the people clamoring for you at the church after you teach.
Oh, I love it. I just love it.
You know what I mean?
I love it.
And so thank you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your ministry. And I'm encouraged by what you had to say. I love, one of the reasons I love bringing in guest speakers is because you bring such a unique, rich perspective. And although I work hard to be faithful to what the Lord says, but I can't see it like you see it. I can't say it like you're going to say it. You know what I mean? And your voice is going to reach someone that my voice could not. And so anyway, so we're just blessed by you. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I just want to say this, is that most people don't realize how difficult it is to bring in a guest preacher. That's a really hard thing. And so your humility and your kindness to share the platform is a really big deal. This is a lot of this is unheard of, where you bring in somebody and you sit in the front row both services, hooping and hollering and supporting. That is such a big deal.
Yep.
It is one of the ways you fully embody just the goodness and the grace and the generosity that you have. And so I honor you in that. That's really difficult. I mean, if you've ever tried to step aside to give somebody else literal spotlight, that takes special person. And so I never take that for granted.
Yeah.
And also just want to honor you in the work and the courage and the humility that takes. And so I'm so grateful for that. So grateful for that.
Thank you so much. We just, to God be the glory. I'm a follower of Jesus. I'm just trying to be led by the Lord. But listen, that is another episode of the Return Unplugged. Thank you guys for tuning in. Continue to stay tapped in with us as we continue along on this journey. We make a turn towards generosity and its connection as it represents where our heart truly is towards Jesus and the commitment to His church. So make sure you guys stay tuned in. But until then, we'll see you guys soon for our next episode.